Good morning. Welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Please stand if you're willing and able to sing our call to worship, Here We Have Gathered, hymn number 360 in our gray hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. Thank you. Please be seated. And once again, welcome to the Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are so glad to be together in this loving, vibrant community. Whoever you are and wherever you come from, for this hour, we are here in one gathered congregation, and all are welcome. My name is Ed Luby. Most of you know me. I am a middle-aged, overweight, balding man, pasty white Caucasian. I am sitting in a wheelchair. I have a blue shirt on and a rather discordant, kind of silver and red looking zigzag tie. Behind me we see the winter landscape of Kitsap County, leafless trees wrapped in a blanket of moss. And as I look back at that description of myself, I think I understand now why my online profile was not picking up a lot of dates when I was single. What I just shared with you is a practice called giving a self-description. Self-descriptions are one way to provide context and access to our blind, low vision, and sight impaired community members to join more fully in our collective worship experience. For those of us with unimpeded sight, we take in visual information such as what people look like, what the room around us looks like, and often we don't even notice that we're doing it. Therefore, when we offer a self-description that names what a person is wearing or what's on the wall behind the speaker, more people who don't automatically have this visual information are welcomed into a similar understanding of our setting. So in the spirit of our KUUF mission, our worship leaders will engage in this practice in our Sunday services. and hopefully they'll be kinder to themselves than I was. Our hope is that this practice will be warmly embraced by our whole community as a part of our ever-growing welcome. Our worship this morning is Joseph Bednarik, co-editor of the Pulitzer Prize-winning poetry publisher, Copper Canyon Press. That almost was a tongue twister for me. We are delighted to have Joseph as our speaker today, as always. I'd like to welcome any visitors. If you're here in person, we all look forward to welcoming you outside after the service. I invite you to follow along in the order of service. For those of you attending virtually, all the links to this service, including the order of service, are on our website and in this morning's worship service email. If you're here in the sanctuary this morning, please silence your cell phones. I'll give you a moment to look at it and go, ooh, thank you for telling me that. For those of you attending online, you don't need to silence your cell phones, but the announcements are available on our website at www.kuuf.org or in our weekly email newsletter, The Candle. I have an announcement. There will be a potluck baby shower at KUUF after the worship service in 2 weeks, hosted by the Staricka family for Paul and Nastya Nikolaev. Hopefully I got that right. A refugee family who is expecting the birth of their first child soon. For more information, check our newsletter, The Candle. A sign-up sheet will be available during Sunday service if you'd like to contribute a dish. In keeping with the covenant of care and concern for each other, our board of directors continues to require that we all wear masks over our mouths and noses while in the building, especially when we're all gathered in the sanctuary for worship. Thank you for honoring that covenant and the board's directions. If you need a mask, the ushers can provide you with one. Just raise your hand. It looks like everyone has one on, so probably that last sentence wasn't particularly needed. And we'll go on to our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea as they have for thousands of years. Here the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Now I'd like to invite someone up to give a stewardship testimonial. Ed Luby, if you would come to the mic. You all get to hear me a lot today. Apparently I have a lot of things to say today. So I'd like to talk to you for a moment about stewardship. And I would like to lead into this conversation by saying I don't like to talk about money. That's an uncomfortable conversation for me. I don't like to talk about money. I don't like to ask people to give money. That to me is like talking about bathroom duties. I just don't appreciate that personally. However, you all need to hear some things, and you all need to understand where we're at and what you can do in helping protect the future of this community that we all find so dear. I'll start out by giving you a little bit of history for me. I've been here for, I'm going to possibly lie to you at this point, I've been here for 4 years. I think I came in 2019. The pandemic has totally erased my memory as to what happened before the pandemic. I believe I've been here for 4 years. I've been here since 2019. I was brought in by my dear friend and mentor, Mike Menefee, who is, interestingly enough, directing the barbershop group in Ocean Shores today. He brought me in. I had no desire to be in a religious group. I had been turned off by religion. I absolutely had disdain for organized religion. And he brought me in, and the more that I sat and listened to these services and read the books and saw what was going on with Universalist Unitarianism, I realized that I had a community. I had found a community that spoke to me and spoke to me on a level that I hadn't been nourished to that point in my life. I was brought up in a weird family, a mix of really strong Catholics and really strong Wiccans. To say that I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere was really an understatement. Came here and I immediately felt that this was a good place for me. We weren't damning each other to hell and beating Bibles and saying how we were going to burn, and it was far more welcoming than all of that. Then, of course, I got elected to the board of directors. If I didn't mention earlier, I'm on the board of directors. Like a year after I started, they said, "Hey, why don't you be on the board of directors?" And a couple years after that, they said, "Hey, why don't you be president?" I don't know anything, but I'll be president, sure. So currently, I'm the president of your board of directors. That has another 2.5 months left in it, not that anyone's counting. And I've seen things from a different side. When I started as an official member here, I gave more than I felt comfortable giving into stewardship. I really valued this group, and I really, really wanted to be a part of its success. And so I gave and I gave and I gave to the point that I thought, what in the heck am I doing? I've never given to a religious organization before. This makes no sense. But I'm going to continue to give because I really appreciate this group. The next year, I got divorced. My wife left me, and I lost half of my household income, and so I had to pull back. And the reason that I'm telling you this is I don't expect everyone to give everything that they can. I know that we are asking you to give of your personal finances, and some people are in better places than others. Some people are able to give more than others. And if you're unable to give anything at all, God bless you, keep coming back. And we want to support you, and the person next to you will pick up the slack because that's what we do as a community. That's what we do as a community. I am fortunate now that I have a new job, and it's paying a lot more than my last job, and so I'm going to step back up again and give a little bit more. If you're able to do that, I hope that you do so. Now I get to change hats just a little bit, and I get to talk to you as a member from the board of directors. Because seeing how many people in this room have been on the board of directors, just out of curiosity? A good chunk of y'all. How many of you all have been president? I'm going to take names here because we need to find a new one. Okay. When you look at it from the board of directors side of things, the finances make a different tone in your head. Trying to take responsibility of what you all generously give, make sure that it's done responsibly, make sure that we are not putting ourselves in jeopardy of going broke, weighs very heavily on me at this point. And I said at the beginning of the year to my board, I said, I think that we have been doing our congregation a disservice by being all happy and kumbaya in our stewardship statements, and I need to deliver something a little bit more realistic to you. And this is my chance to do that to you. And I don't mean to be grouchy and unkind, and I'm not being unkind, or I mean doom and gloom, but I need to let you know what's happening. Last year, we performed a little bit of deficit spending. Deficit spending, by definition, is we're spending more than we bring in revenues. We knew that this was happening. We informed you that this was happening, but I need to drive this forward to you that this is what's happening at this point. We spent about $28,000 more than we had coming in. And we looked at this as after the pandemic, we've lost some big donators, whether through leaving the church or dying. And we're at a point where we need to grow again. We're at a point where we need to rebuild. So we chose to bite that bullet with the understanding that we wouldn't want to do that again. This year, we're given a budget that's going to cause us to deficit spend again if we take the budget that's been given to us, and if pledges stay the same that they were. So I'm not going to support that. I'm going to say we need to cut. We need to make some hard decisions. We need to be able to get this as close to balance as possible. Because yes, we will grow. Yes, money will come in, but honestly, if we were to spend in the deficit that's been presented to us, in 2 years' time, we're going to be broke. And I don't want that to happen, and I don't want to be the person that enabled that. So I'm only one voice on a panel of 7 board members, but I'm not going to support that. I want to let you know that that's where we're at. So what can you do for us? A lot of you, God bless you, give a lot of money during the passing of the hat. I appreciate that. If that is your main way to give to us, let us know what that number is going to be so that we can include that in our budget. If you can increase your pledges a little bit, oh, that'd be fantastic. I went through McDonald's the other day, and my McDonald's bill for one person was $17. That is not unusual. 3 trips to McDonald's is $51 over a period of a month. If I were able to put that back into my pledge, that's an amount, if we did that as a congregation, of, I forget, Reverend Crystal gave us a huge number, $60-some thousand, that would be available. Think of places where you can, as Mike Menifee said so eloquently years ago, give till it feels good, and then give again. Realize that that person sitting next to you may be going through a slump and may not be able to give as much. Help them out. Our direction on what we do for budget is going to come from your mandate, and your mandate comes with the pledge. If you give us what we need to be able to make things happen in the budget, does the technology in the admin room need to be replaced? Absolutely. We have people on staff who are bringing their own computers in to work on because our technology is not working anymore for them. Is that right? No. Can we afford to replace that right now? No. So our mandate, our walking orders are going to come from what you let us know that you can give us to work with. And I'm not going to ask you to give us more than you can. We will work with what you give us. So that's the end of my stewardship speech. I love you all. You are my chosen family. I adore my family, absolutely love my family. You are the people that I choose to be my family as well. I will support you in any way that I can. And hopefully you all will support each other. All right. Deep breath. Please, this is okay. Opening words. Our opening words are from feminist Gloria Steinem. Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. Now we will do our chalice lighting. Eric and Meg Howlett will light our chalice today. Look at them, all ready to go. I appreciate that. Eric and Meg were members of KUUF in the 80s and 90s when Eric was still in the Navy. Thank you for your service. Their 2 daughters attended RE here. They've been trying to get back for years and finally moved back last December. They were very happy to sign the members' book last Tuesday. Yay. Join me now in lighting our chalice. If you have your own chalice or candle at home, please light it as I read our chalice words from Helen Keller. I, who have never heard a sound, tell you there is no silence. And I, who have never seen a ray of light, tell you there is no darkness. Thank you. Please join me in the spoken affirmation. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. The words of our next hymn, Filled with Loving Kindness, are a traditional Buddhist meditation. The music was written by Reverend Ian Riddell, who was a public school teacher, then minister of music and worship arts at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego, after which he went to Lombard Theological Seminary, then to become assistant and then lead minister at UU Church of the Desert in Rancho Mirage, California. His ministry and his spiritual and ethical life grow to form the prophet Micah's admonition to do justice, be steadfastly faithful, and to move humbly through the world, and from Ursula Le Guin's affirmation that love has to be made new every day. Please stand as you are willing and able to join in singing hymn number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness, in our teal hymnal, Singing the Journey. Thank you. Now, Melinda Hughes, our Director of Religious Education, will share our time for all ages.
Good morning. I am a white woman with short, faded red hair, wearing glasses, a fall-colored flowered shirt, and a black cardigan sweater. I just have to give a shout out to the youngest among us because it's been a long beginning to the service, and I heard some of them when I walked up here say, yes. So I think they're ready. I think they're ready to move along. So you've done a great job hanging in there. So this morning's story is based on a story by Leo Tolstoy, and it's called The Three Questions, written and illustrated by John Muth. Excuse me. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood, and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia, the heron, spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Gogol the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, You will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, You can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide when to do good things. For example, Gogol, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Nikolai thought for a moment, then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling up into the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Gogol. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. Then the boy thought for a long while. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions, but their answers didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought. I will ask Leo, the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for. Nikolai hiked high up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old, and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions, and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on with his digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and rain burst from the darkened clouds. As they moved toward the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Running down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and windows. The panda woke up. Where am I? She asked, and where is my child? The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran farther into the forest. He found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry, and then laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Gogol, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child. But he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered," he said. "They have?" asked the boy. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging in the garden. The most important one at that moment was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby. And the most important thing was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. This is why we are here." So I have to say, after hearing Ed this morning, the story took on a different light for me. I think stories like this have many layers that we can hear them. I think the children hear them one way. I think our teenagers hear them another way. I think adults, we hear them a different way. So hopefully you heard something in this story here this morning that can bring you enlightenment and help you think. And now please join singing together as the children and I head up to the mountain building.
We gather as a religious community to give each one of us a place where we can do the work of many. Together, our light is much brighter than a solitary flame. Now is the time in our service when we share in the sacred act of giving, an expression of gratitude transformed into generosity that breathes life into our mission. As a part of our mission that inspires us to act on our beliefs, we share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Our charitable giving recipient for the month of February is our own Unitarian partner church of Rexned, Romania, for their children's summer camp program. In a moment, our ushers will move among us with baskets to collect the offering. Donations placed in the basket will go to our partner church. If you would like your offering to go to KUUF, please use one of the envelopes provided to you with your order of service when you came into the sanctuary. For those joining us online, you may go to our website, kuuf.org, and select the Giving tab for PayPal and mailing information. If this is your first time at KUUF, please feel free to let the basket pass you by. Your presence is your gift. Let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our community, which is sacred to so many of us. Let us enjoy a gift of music from our music coordinator, Brian Kenny, as he plays Waltz in A-flat by Johannes Brahms. Thank you, Brian. Now's the time for our joys and sorrows. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows lessened. We start with a joy for the life of the composer of What the World Needs Now. May Burt Bacharach's music live on forever. Mac Johnson gives us a joy. Mac Johnson and another anti-nuclear protester facing federal trespassing charges from a civil disobedience protest at Bangor Nuclear Subbase last August had their case dismissed by a federal judge magistrate. Mac predicts a flood of peaceniks clogging the Bangorettes with their walkers this summer. All right. An anonymous concern, their friend has liver cancer, has been their friend and co-worker for 7 years, and is a joy to be around. Our hearts go out to you and our thoughts. Bonnie Heinrich says, one of my best friends had her rites of passing read to her by her priest last night. She has suffered from stage 4 cancer for the last year, and now COVID will begin her journey to the afterworld soon. A wonderful soul. All right. In the spirit, and oops, I'm sorry. I have one more that I need to read at the bottom. And we light one last candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share. Please join me in a moment of prayer or intention. In the spirit of community, in which we find strength and common purpose, we share our joys, our sorrows, our hopes and dreams. We have turned our minds and hearts toward one another in trust, giving love, seeking comfort, and celebrating together. We are a part of the web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. In all the moments of our lives, for those loved ones and events shared this morning, and for those we yet hold in the silence of our hearts, we are truly grateful for the love and support of this beloved community. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen and blessed be. Please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life, hymn number 123, in our gray hymnal. The words will appear on your screen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Bednarik. I am a white man. What hair I have is short, a little gray along the sides there. I'm currently wearing a gray blazer with a purple tie. And also I want to acknowledge that immediately to my left is a beautiful bowl of candles that are burning. And those candles represent joys and sorrows of our community. And I just want to say it is always an honor to be here at this pulpit with those flames burning, and especially the person who has been read their last rites. Very powerful. This morning, my reading is going to be a touch longer than normal. It's a poem that should be easy to follow. It's a story poem by a very popular poet named Billy Collins. And I want to reflect back to the opening words, it's the opening words by Gloria Steinem, that dreaming is a form of planning. And I just want to bring that forward. So this poem is called Shoveling Snow with Buddha. And it's funny. You're welcome to laugh. In the usual iconography of the temple or the local walk, you would never see him doing such a thing, tossing the dry snow over the mountain of his bare, round shoulder, his hair tied in a knot, a model of concentration. Sitting is more his speed, if that is the word for what he does or does not do. Even the season is wrong for him. In all his manifestations, is it not warm or slightly humid? Is this not implied by his serene expression, that smile so wide it wraps itself around the waist of the universe? But here we are, working our way down the driveway, one shovelful at a time. We toss the light powder into clean air. We feel the cold mist on our faces. And with every heave, we disappear and become lost to each other in these sudden clouds of our own making, these fountain bursts of snow. This is so much better than a sermon in church, I say out loud. You wait, Billy. This is so much better than a sermon in church, I say out loud, but Buddha keeps on shoveling. This is the true religion, the religion of snow and sunlight and winter geese barking in the sky, I say. But he is too busy to hear me. He has thrown himself into shoveling snow as if it were the purpose of existence, as if the sign of a perfect life were a clear driveway. You could back the car down easily and drive off into the vanities of the world with a broken heater fan and a song on the radio. All morning long, we work side by side, me with my commentary and he inside his generous pocket of silence, until the hour is nearly noon and the sun is piled high all around us, and then I hear him speak. After this, he asks, "Can we go inside and play cards?" "Certainly," I reply, "and I will heat some milk and bring cups of hot chocolate to the table while you shuffle the deck and our boots stand dripping by the door." "Ah," says the Buddha, lifting his eyes and leaning for a moment on his shovel before he drives the thin blade again deep into the glittering white snow. Let's have a time of silent meditation thinking about shoveling snow with the Buddha. That visual description that I gave was the first time I've ever done that, and I really enjoyed the exercise of thinking into how to describe myself visually for those who can't see that well. So thank you, KUUF, for the opportunity to do that. And also, I'd just like to say I really appreciate what Ed Luby said this morning about his discomfort with asking for financial resources to help run phenomenal organizations. I don't have that problem. I think that Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world are amazing organizations. And I think one of the energy forms that it takes to run these amazing organizations is money. It's just consider it green energy for those environmentalists around. So you are welcome to pump your green energy into this organization along with your love and respect and desire to make the place run. So thank you, Ed, for that. And I wish you growth into comfort with asking with a full heart and a lot of commitment for the resources that are needed. Because I run a nonprofit organization, I know what it's like to have ulcers regarding operations budgets. And one of the fundamental principles of mathematics is the transitive property of equality, which essentially boils down to a neat if-then statement. It goes something like this: if A equals B and B equals C, then A is going to equal C. Pretty obvious, right? If 1 plus 4 equals 5 and 7 minus 2 equals 5, then 1 plus 4 equals 7 minus 2. Now, as soon as the math teacher finishes with that concept, their next breath usually goes something like this. And hey, everybody, you absolutely have to be cautious when attempting to develop arguments using the transitive property in non-math settings. For example, an unsound application of the transitive property goes something like this. If the Mariners defeated the White Sox and the White Sox defeated the Yankees, then the Mariners are going to defeat the Yankees. And while we, of course, I guess, all want the Yankees to always lose, that math just doesn't work. Because the fact is that the material world is full of interesting opportunities, all these things flying around, 10,000 variables, makes real life render that equal sign, that really crisp equal sign, essentially meaningless. And thus Las Vegas exists, right? With the convenient lack of an equal sign creates bookies and odds and point spreads and abundant monies flowing with the mathematical precision in the direction of the house. The house will always, always win. Now, the transitive property of equality loses some of its shine when you say, well, A sort of kind of equals B, and B sort of kind of equals C, so then A sort of kind of equals C. And that word sort of kind of, it's just not in the mathematical dictionary. And I actually have a mathematical dictionary, and I checked just to make sure. So I can assure you that sort of kind of does not exist there. But I've always loved those terms, the sort of kind of, the thereabouts, or close enough, especially, or the gist. I love that phrase, the gist. I like close enough, especially when I'm balancing my checkbook. For those who do still balance checkbooks, I like the fact that I can use math to get near, right? It's close enough. So words and phrases like sorta, kinda, thereabouts, close enough are exactly why mathematicians love mathematics. Because there's at least one area in the universe where answers can be exacting, where the equals means equals, where the universal language of math is understood and certain answers are simply indisputably true. Now, an equals sign can stand loud and proud between a beautiful formula, between numbers, and we can proclaim to the heavens, equals. And as the mathematician holds aloft their equal sign, the literalist, the word person, steps forward and says, you know, A does not equal C, because if A equals C, you could spell cat A-A-T or C-C-T, and that makes zero sense, thank you very much. And thus the world turns, right? The universe expands, the word people go off to their crossword puzzles, the Math people go after their Sudoku puzzle books, equals, schmequals, et cetera, And with schmequals in mind, let's have religion enter from stage left. And let's have religion enter from stage right as well. And let's really liven up the conversation here, okay? Once upon a time, in a thrift store, on the edge of a continent, on the tip of North America, I found this abandoned book about religion that used a math term in a very interesting way. The title of the book is Jesus and Buddha. And now you know why I read the Billy Collins poem about the Buddha. Jesus and Buddha, with the subtitle, using a math term, the parallel sayings. Jesus and Buddha, the parallel sayings. Now, what this book does is just absolutely brilliant. It presents short sayings from both these religious teachers and prints them facing each other, so a reader can actually witness for themselves the similarities of their teachings. Now, the book was organized into various topics, such as compassion, wisdom, temptation, salvation, things that we've all dealt with in our life. Now, I opened to the first instance of the parallel text, and Jesus said, and I quote, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." This is commonly called the golden rule. And Buddha, on the facing page, said, quote, "Consider others as yourself." So do you sense between these an equal sign of reciprocity and commonality, both within and between the statements? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I love that sense of radiating reciprocity between people, how the golden rule has that equal sign embedded within it, and how the golden rule is actually rooted in a verb, in action. Do. And I love the resonance of that with the story this morning about the three questions. And I love also in these services just how elements start to reflect and refract off each other randomly. It's just really gorgeous. And then the Buddha. Consider others as yourself. It's from the Dhammapada. Here is commonality and an implied community, a word which, interestingly, can be seen as common unity, which certainly echoes the transitive property of equality. And because I practice and we practice a religion called Unitarian Universalism, I bring our first principle into the mix. I bring value into this equation, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Because you and I are within the every of the phrase every person when we see the Buddha's wisdom. Consider others as yourself, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We're gifted with our own worth and dignity when we do in the world. And then, because it's my nature to tease words and phrases apart, I started riffing on the subtitle of the book, the parallel sayings part. And I realized that parallel lines never meet, but travel on to an infinity, never touching, creating this beautiful, infinitely long equal sign, which I just loved. And just when I was getting comfortable with my one book, I found another book that used a math term in an interesting way. The subtitle of this book was Jesus and Lao Tzu, the parallel sayings. Now, this is interesting, I thought. And so I bought the book into my life. I shelved the two books together on the shelf, figuring that Jesus and Buddha and Lao Tzu could talk with each other across parallel lines and equal signs, and they could talk about love and compassion and virtue. And so to be fair, to be equal, I paralleled the parallels, and I opened the Jesus and the Lao Tzu book to the first instance of their related texts, and I was gifted with this in a section entitled Simplicity. Now, this is from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, and there's a great little assignment for you. On Super Bowl Sunday, after a Unitarian Universalist congregational meeting or worship service, I encourage you to go home and at some point today, bust out your cell phone, get your computer, grab the Bible down from the shelf, and read Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Amazing, amazingly beautiful. Here's a quote from the Sermon on the Mount. Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. And here's Lao Tzu's echo back. By doing nothing, everything is done. Now, at this point, my magical insights into the nature of equality in the universe sort of kinda ground down into the practical world, and I wanted some more context, because honestly, I have always been puzzled by that Jesus bird quote, right? So expanding out from that single verse, I found this in a book entitled The Essential Jesus. Look at the birds above your head. They neither plant nor reap, they neither store nor hoard, yet day by day God gives them food. Look at the flowers beneath your feet. They neither card nor spin, they neither sew nor weave, yet King Solomon shone less brightly than they. So why worry about your life, what you will get to eat, what you will have to wear? Really, Jesus? As a modern man, I am very suspect of the proposed sort of kind of equal sign between my human requirement for two of life's basic needs, right? Food and clothing, and the example of the lives of birds and flowers. Now, scientists have shown over and over again, and it's intuitive, that birds work very hard all day long, looking for food, building nests, raising young, protecting their turf, right? These birds are not hanging around, right? Now, that said, as a poetic, modern human being, I recognize and respect that equal sign of metaphor, that I, too, am of the earth, and God, in her wisdom and her compassion, will provide for me as she provides for all creatures, as she has already provided for our own life. And that I'm advised to trust in the divine, that my life's basic needs will be met, with the not so subtle implication that those physical needs should be secondary to my spiritual needs, to my spiritual desires. Now, it's interesting to note, too, that it's within this gospel verse where the famous line appears, "O ye of little faith," with the little faith challenging any lack of trust in God's loving generosity. And while that line appears in several times in the Gospels, scholars actually doubt whether Jesus actually said that. Just wanted to say that. But that said, we've all heard stories of those people who have taken this statement literally, who threw open their arms and their heart, and they placed their loving trust into God's generosity. They sought to practice a great faith, perhaps even an infinite faith, to experience directly the abundant miracles of the divine. Now, in the modern era, I think of the Peace Pilgrim, who was a woman who in the 1950s, at age 45, had this profound religious experience, and she began walking. She began walking to, quote, "remain a wanderer until mankind has learned the way of peace, walking until given shelter, and fasting until given food." Now, the Peace Pilgrim's only possessions were the clothes on her back and the few items that she carried in the pockets of her blue tunic, which read Peace Pilgrim. She had no organized backing, she carried no money, and she would not ask for food or for shelter. Look at the birds in the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Now, the Peace Pilgrim walked for nearly 3 decades and covered 25,000 miles. And while this could be Exhibit A in support of Jesus' teaching, it also has this tinge of sadness to me, because the Peace Pilgrim remained a wanderer for the rest of her life. The world never did learn, to her satisfaction, the way of peace. And speaking of the way, Let's now move from Jesus' birds and flowers to Lao Tzu's line. By doing nothing, everything is done. I'm really glad I did not read that line at age 17. So, I vacuumed, right? So let's do what we did with the birds and the flowers, and let's witness the entirety of that passage 67 where that line appears. And this is a translation from a great Chinese translator named Red Pine. Those who seek learning gain every day. Those who seek the way lose every day. They lose and they lose until they find nothing to do. Nothing to do means nothing to be done. Those who rule the world aren't busy. Those who are busy can't rule the world. And please note that I willfully chose a different translation than the one cited in the parallel text, and compare these lines from the different translations. And that's the other thing, too, when you're reading the Sermon on the Mount this afternoon. You know, when the Super Bowl party is about to start, and you say, hold on, I guess you got to go read Sermon on the Mount. I'll be right with you. Be aware that there's like 12 zillion different translations of that. And same thing with the Tao Te Ching. So here's the same line in a couple of different translations. By doing nothing, everything is done. And then the second one is nothing to do means nothing not done. And so also soberly bring this memo forward. There are many, many, many translations of the Tao Te Ching. And because the Tao is one of my favorite books of all time, I actually own over 100 different English translations. I've been collecting these things for 30 years. Please don't think too deeply about what that might mean about my personality. So I had the opportunity, I cross-referenced many different renditions of the line, and I'm going to offer you a couple more this morning. And this is all in the service of that equal sign that we were talking about earlier, the transitive property. So this is a translation from Stephen Mitchell. If you have a translation of the Tao Te Ching at home, it's likely Stephen Mitchell's. Less and less you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. This from Sam Hamill. Without being or doing, grasp the world accordingly, never meddling. And Thomas Cleary. Taking the world is always done by not making anything of it. Now, presumably these translators were all reading the same Chinese line, right? And is this kind of a sort of kind of feel between them. And all this to say that the mathematicians within earshot, they're getting a rash right now because that bright neon sign is looking really, really good, and it's really hard to detect. And then there's flash of transitive insight, right? If I could discover a place where Jesus paralleled Buddha and Buddha paralleled Lao Tzu, then Jesus could parallel Lao Tzu, and all of us could have a really, really good time sort of thinking about all that, right? And so the project became, I'm going to do that. So I opened my two books, delighted to discover that there was a chapter on materialism, right? It was included in both books. And not only that, there were several common Jesus sayings in each. So here is the parallel of the parallel. Jesus. Store up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Buddha. Let the wise person do righteousness, a treasure that others cannot share, which no thief can steal, a treasure which does not pass away. And then Lao Tzu. I have 3 treasures. Guard them, keep them safe. The first is love. The second is moderation. The third is daring not to be ahead of others. Now, the parallel of the parallel is the idea of treasure, right? But not worldly treasure like gold or stock options, but inner treasure, human treasure, righteousness, of love, of moderation, of humility. In each, too, there is this recognition of the risks to treasure, to worldly treasure. to thieves, to rust, to moths. And that's incumbent upon all of us to both recognize our treasures and to care for them, to care for the treasure. And here's where we spotlight Lao Tzu in the first of his three treasures, and that's love. Capital L, love. And here's where we spotlight one of the core principles of universalism, that God is love. Divinity is love. And here's where we call forth the transitive property of equality, where A equals C. Now, if we have a treasure within us called love, and God is love, well, God is within us. QED. Or better yet, if we practice doing love through the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, we practice co-creating a loving world that becomes drenched with the divine. Again, a beautiful callback to the children's story this morning. By loving, therefore, actively loving, therefore, we realize, we experience, we're within our divinity. And yet, there's always an and yet. Remember earlier in the sermon when I mentioned that I own over 100 different translations of the Tao Te Ching? Well, just for fun, I checked over a dozen different translations by both men and women, Brits and Americans, scholars and poets, just to see how different people handled Lao Tzu's three treasures, right? Especially that first one, love. And here's the deal. Most of the translators that I cross-referenced did not choose to use the word love. They chose the word compassion. I thought that was deeply interesting. And in fact, I found these words were used as the first treasure: love, compassion, mercy, and in one sort of, if there's a bell curve, there's always someone out here on the far end of the bell curve. Someone's decided to translate it pity. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of dust on the top of that Tao Te Ching. So with interest piqued, I went back even deeper, back into the mother of all English translations, a volume called Tao Te Ching, the Definitive Edition. Right? Now what this book contains is verbatim, line by line, character by character chart of the sacred text, which contains all the possible meanings of all the Chinese words. Right? So you could get this book and you yourself could create your own translation of the Tao Te Ching. So I looked up the word in question and I found the Chinese word called Zhi and a listing of these possible definitions: love, deep love, great love, motherly love, affection, compassion, unconditional love, love that protects and nurtures, mercy, tolerance. All these words in English used to help define a Chinese term in a sacred text. I hope you got that cloud-like feeling. There's a lot of energy in those words, and there might not be a precise way to get at it. There might not be an equal sign, right? And so no matter what word or phrase you choose to use, you will discover treasure, right? A treasure within you that becomes valuable only when you use it. Isn't that amazing? The treasure is only valuable when you use it, only when you do it. And this is why the treasure is beyond the reach of thieves, because there's nothing to steal. You can only receive. And there's only giving. There's only receiving. There is no guarding, and there is no taking. And the giving and the receiving of love, of compassion, of mercy. And here on earth, where the birds, which I'm hearing outside right now, when the birds of the air swoop worry-free, and those flowers, they bloom beyond riches, well, welcome to heaven, folks. It's right here. It's right now. and this heaven that we are trying to co-create by doing capital L love. Thank you. Amen. I want to hear some kids go, yes. It's done. Yes. Right on. So our closing hymn this morning is in the teal hymnal, and lyrics on the screens, 1001, called Breaths. You're welcome to rise as you're willing and able. Fantastic, thank you. Our closing words this morning, a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. And we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These let us carry in our hearts until we're together again. Thanks. Even better. Nice.